All right, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is basically a student panel, so you get to ask questions, you can unmute yourself, you can put it in the chat and I'll ask the students as well. We have a few students with us who are going to talk a little bit about their experiences. So it's going to be like a red robin. They'll introduce themselves and then I'll propose some questions. You're more than welcome to ask your own questions as well. And of course, the panelists can share additional information just to make sure that you understand the process. Now, I see that we have Sweden, Japan, and South Korea. I don't know if anyone else, let's see what else country we're looking at. Okay, so South Korea, definitely. So we have students from those areas right now, so that's awesome. For the panelists, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we're gonna go, I'm trying to do this. Janelle, Samantha, Sarah, no, Janelle, Logan, Samantha, Sarah. That's alphabetical. So Janelle, if you want to start off, just your name, a program you're in,
Hi.
and then where you went to, so.
Sure. So I'm Janelle. I studied abroad in Vienna, Austria for 2 semesters. I actually graduated already. And I did spring of 2019 and spring of 2020. And yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Perfect, thank you. And then Logan?
Hi, my name is Logan. I studied abroad in Saitama, Japan at Saitama University last year from September to this August, so I just got back this semester. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
And then we'll go Samantha and Sarah right after.
Hello, my name is Samantha. I study abroad at the University of Canberra in Australia this spring 2020. So I went the end of January. I came back in June of this year. If you guys have any questions, I'll be here. We'll answer them.
Sarah?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I recently studied abroad in South Korea at the University of Seoul. I did that for the spring of 2020. I left late February and I came back like late July. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, I'll be glad to answer them.
And Megan, I know, I just see that you stepped in. We were just doing introductions. If you want to just introduce yourself, the program you're studying, where you went to, and what semester you traveled abroad.
Okay, hi guys. My name is. I went to Spain. I was at in Santander on the northern coast of Spain. So spring 2020, and yeah, that's me.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so we'll start the rounds of questions. So let's start off with, why did you pick the location you went to? I think everyone has a different location pretty much. So let's start off with Janelle. Why did you pick Austria? And you did it twice too.
Yes, I did do it twice. And for a lot of reasons. I love the culture. I love the elegance of the city and the history and the culture of the coffee houses and how the main city center was so like central. And it was very easy to navigate in general. Vienna is one of the safest cities in the world, and it's very like clean and very organized in general. Also excellent for traveling. It borders about 7 countries like Austria does. So it's like kind of in the middle of Europe. And if you want to go somewhere for the weekend, like it's very easy to do that. Like I remember I did a trip to Prague. I just took like a bus with a few of my friends, and it was just like a few hours there. We spent the weekend. I also did the same thing for Budapest, which is in Hungary. So it's a very good central location in Europe.
Thank you, Janelle. And Logan, same question. Why did you select Japan, and for 2 semesters as well?
Yeah, I could talk for a while about it, but the 3 main bullet points I would say was, 1, because of the love of culture. And if you don't like the place you're going to, that's a big no, I guess. The second one is the timing. As a student, engineering student, I feel like I didn't have a better opportunity than at that moment to study abroad. And thirdly, because of engineering, there's a lot of very good opportunities in Japan and related to the field I want to pursue. That's about it.
Perfect, thank you. And Samantha, the same question.
So I chose Australia because it was my second option. It was a little bit similar to my first option, which was England. And I wanted to take something very different from what like people usually locations that people usually talk about, which Australia might not be one of them. And it turns out like the culture and everything, I extremely loved it. Like I felt like it fit my personality, and where I was the capital, so it was a bunch of like different cultures as well. So like the culture, the school, everything. I can talk for hours about it, but yeah, that's mostly why I went.
Thank you. And Sarah, you're from South Korea. You went to South Korea, and one of our students, Janine, just sent a text that she wanted to hear all about your experience, but we have a lot of questions to get through. So why did you select South Korea?
Yeah, I just saw the comment too. Janine, I will gladly answer all of your questions, and we can talk about that later. But just like Janine, I went to South Korea to do my international business minor. And on top of that, I was learning the language already. I've been learning it for about like 3.5 years now. And I already have an interest with the entertainment industry, so like K-pop, K-dramas, things of that. But when I found out that they had an exchange program at the University of Seoul for international business, I jumped on the opportunity, and just, being around that culture already that I was familiar with was really exciting. So that's why I chose that country.
Thank you. And Megan, why did you select that location?
So I chose Spain because I had actually already been there. My school in high school did like an exchange program. So I had already been there for 2 weeks in high school, and I was had exchange students, so I was very close with still. Like they came and lived with us a couple summers after from Spain. And when I was there, like the first time, I just loved the culture and like just people's attitudes. It's like very laid back, very welcoming, very accepting, very safe, and like just an all around, like people are just very happy there, and I love that, and like stress free, like, but also the language. I had learned Spanish like in high school and stuff, but hadn't spoken it in a couple of years. And the first time I was there, I had gotten so much better at speaking it, and I had felt like I had lost my language skills since then. And I really wanted to get them back, and I absolutely did. Like, I know everybody always says, like, if you live somewhere that speaks the language, it's like the best way to learn it, but it's so true. It definitely, like, you're going to learn a lot if you have to have some language going into it, like language experience, to be able to learn and like build off. But that was definitely a huge part of it, is that I wanted to work on that. And then also being by the ocean was really nice. I've always like wanted to live near the ocean, because even though I go to school at UCF, obviously I'm from Vermont, so I'm from the mountains, so the ocean is always still like really cool to me. And I loved being able to just like walk down to the beach from my apartment, which was really fun. And being in a smaller city too, it's really safe. Like I never felt, like I always felt like I was gonna be okay. Like I never was worried about safety or anything. And it's just easier to like get around, and it's more like of a community than a big city, which was nice. But they still had an airport, which was very key to like be able to still travel, obviously. And then also the price was a huge factor. My money went a lot further in Spain than it would have in some other countries, so I wanted to be able to like not have to be as strict on my budget. Like the rent, groceries, travel, stuff like that. It was very, very cheap. So yeah, that was my choice.
Perfect. And then, so we're starting again. One of the things that we hear about is expectations. So can you talk a little bit about what you expected from the experience and what were you surprised about that you were just not expecting? Danelli, if you can start off again?
Yeah, sure. Actually, going into it, I had no idea what to expect. I definitely thought that they wouldn't speak as much English as they did, so that was a nice surprise. I would say that's definitely because it's like, the capital of the country. So I got very lucky that I was able to communicate with a lot of people there. I definitely did learn the basics, which was nice. So like if I got into like an Uber car or whatever, like I was able to, say the basics, or if I went to the grocery store, I was able to like communicate there. But yeah, going into it, I really didn't have many expectations. I would say the experience definitely was, so much better, and it was such a rewarding experience in general. And yeah, I definitely recommend, like, if anyone is thinking about studying abroad, it's an experience that, you just can't, it's priceless. There's like no amount of money, I would say, that could give you that kind of experience in general. Totally priceless.
Thank you. And Logan, what about your expectations? Because Japan is a completely different type of culture and structure. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, sure. For my case, I kind of knew that Japan was not even close, just based on internet reading and what other past students have told me. So I didn't really have any expectations going in. I just tried to take things one step at a time. I kind of assumed that no one would speak English, and for the most part, they didn't. So you kind of just have to stumble your way through until you know, get a better grasp of the language or find some friends who can help you out. One of the other panelists mentioned the costs, which your money went further, and that was also true in Japan. Meals, rent, traveling around the country was a lot cheaper than America. So I feel like that's a big thing students don't realize.
Perfect. Thank you, Logan. And Samantha, what were some of your expectations for the trip as well? And were you surprised? What were you surprised about?
Yeah, so going in, I had no expectation as well. And then when I went, it was very like weird that there was a lot of similarities to the American culture, but a lot of differences as well, especially with the language. They speak a lot of slangs with the English language, which like it was really fun to learn a bunch of them. Um, the people were extremely nice, and the history was very interesting to learn. I have no regrets of going. If I had to go back to a study abroad, I would definitely go back to that same location. The transportation was very flexible, like with the buses and how to pay for the bus to go back and forth. And then with the conversion, with the money, it was like if I purchased something, it was less in American dollars. So I thought it was gonna be more, but it was less when I purchased something. So that was really cool.
And Sarah, what are your experiences as well? Because I know you prepared a lot for this.
So going in, my expectation was mainly to experience like the academic life, because in Korea, they don't really have a lot of recreational activities when it comes to college. They're kind of just like, once they get into their major, they're in their major and they start their classes, and it's a kind of like tight-knit community. So they don't have football games or, pep rallies or any of that stuff. So I was really, trying to experience that, but due to the virus, everything was online. So I spent most of my time in the dorm. But other than that, I was also very skeptical about the transportation system. I went to New York, I've tried out their subway systems, and I was, terrified of that because it was so hard to navigate. But in Korea, the subway stations and the bus system was very easy. And a lucky thing was they always had English. I was very surprised with the amount of English around the country. I mean, with the signs and even the names of restaurants and menus and stuff like that, everything was in English. So it was easy for me to make my way around with knowing very little Korean. On top of that, everything was really, really cheap. I wasn't expecting that either. I went with the expectation of blowing a lot of cash and, wasting money within the first 2 months, but I was able to hold out a lot of money my entire time there, because everything was so affordable. I think that's pretty much it. Like, those were my expectations so far. It was a really nice experience, and I will definitely do it again.
Thank you. And Megan, for Spain.
So I would say, for the most part, I think I kind of already had a little bit of an idea since I had done like the small exchange trip before. But the things that caught me off guard were like my original one. It was like a group of my students from my school. We did an exchange with the other school. So other than like the people from our school, it was all other people from Spain. But so that was kind of what I thought this was going to be, which was totally like not the case, which wasn't a bad thing. It was actually a really good thing because there was a lot of other exchange students from all over the world, which was really cool to like be able to meet people from like every corner of the earth. Because you're not just getting the cultural immersion of your country, but you're also like learning about other cultures as well, which was super fun. And I wasn't sure like how it was going to be about like how I was going to make friends or meet people or anything. And what they have there, which is what they have in a lot of European countries from what I've heard, I could be wrong, but is ESN, which is Erasmus Student Network, which they like organize events and stuff for the exchange students. So they did like different like activities, or like they'd all go to a restaurant, like a local restaurant that has their local cuisine, or little day trips to other towns and stuff like that. So it just gave you like things to do with other exchange students from other places to meet them. And so that was really cool, which I didn't really realize was going to happen, which was fun. Also, I will say about the transportation, definitely that's something that I wish I had known ahead of time when I was traveling, is like when you go places, try to figure out the transportation before you get there, because when I feel like every time I traveled, that took a huge chunk out of my time, was just figuring out like how to get around. And so yeah, that's just definitely something to look into if you're not like from like New York City or Boston or somewhere that has public transportation like that. Just figuring that out is important.
Thank you, Megan. And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but this session is recorded because we're hoping to have this available to other students that just want to hear about study abroad experience. So even though I'm asking questions, if you feel there's something you should say so that other students know, just go ahead and say it. It will be heard by other students as well. Let's start back again with Janelle. What were you did it twice. So the first time you got there, what were some of your challenges that you had to overcome? I know you talk about the language, but you kind of adapted to that, and then you did a second trip there as well too. So what are some of the challenges that you encountered?
Yes, so true. So I think when I first arrived, it was the little things, that you have to do, such as like the phone plan, or dealing, with the government, like you have to register there, or even little things such as, getting Wi-Fi for your room, like finding, where do I find a router? Like, where do I buy these little essentials that I need? Like, anything from like brooms to mops and stuff. Like, you don't really know like what the grocery stores are, like what these different department stores are, because they all have different names in these different countries. So I guess just kind of getting that information from the first couple people that you meet there. Like, if let's say my uni had like a buddy program, so when I first arrived, like there was someone who picked me up from the airport, and I asked him so many questions. I was like, where do I buy this? Where can I get that? What's a good bank account? Like, for example, I had to make a bank account there in Austria so that I was able to buy like lunch at my uni and stuff like that. And I needed it for other things as well. So I'm sure that many people will need to start a bank account in the new country. I would say that was like another like small challenge. So just kind of you know, looking for those resources and asking people, like not being afraid to ask other people for those resources is like a big thing for me.
And Ellie, before we let you go, what about currency conversion? Was it difficult for you to get money out of like an ATM or?
So for me, before I left to Austria, I opened this bank account that's actually American. It's called Charles Schwab, I believe it's called. You can do it online and they send you like a debit card and you can put in your money there. So like I put in my US dollars, and when I got to Austria, there's no ATM fees, no international fees. So I was just able to use that card, and I was also able to use my Austrian card. Um, but for example, like to pay rent, I needed to pay with my Austrian card. So that's another reason why I needed the bank there. So I would convert my money, like I would transfer it from my American bank account to my Austrian one using this website called transferwise.com. The fees are really, really low. So if you just do it through your bank and ask for an international transfer, like for example, for me, it would be like $40 or $50 just to transfer. But through this website, it's like maybe it just takes like a small percentage. It's much less. So it's called transferwise.com, I believe. I can write it down in the chat.
Thank you, Jenna. That would be appreciated.
Mhm.
Logan, your challenges as well, and if you can add on money conversion, was it a cash-heavy society in Japan?
Just like the previous student said, I also opened a Schwab account, a brokerage account, and a checking account. Like she said, if you just get the debit card before at any ATM, there's no ATM fees. That's actually false. There are ATM fees, but they will credit that back to your account, so you don't pay anything. So that's how I paid for stuff like rent. I just took out money as I needed. When I got there at like midnight or a little less. And I was supposed to do something that day. I was supposed to meet with like the other students, but my flight got delayed, so I couldn't do that. So for the next week, I was just like roaming around. I was supposed to get a tutor, but that didn't happen until the next week, so I didn't really know how things worked. I kind of just woke up the next day and started exploring. I figured out just by walking around like supermarkets, and then I walked to the train station, and then that was a mess trying to figure out buses and trains. And there's a certain card, it's called a Suica card, and you use it for trains and buses, and you can use it for your uni's food and stuff like that. So I knew that going in, which I needed to get, but figuring out how to buy that was also interesting. Yeah,
And
there was
just
a good amount of.
one more question, Logan. Am I breaking up? I'm so sorry. Did the train system have anything in English in Japan or no?
From the airport, like I got a taxi and like a limousine bus, and it wasn't in English. Maybe in like the Narita airport it was, but once I got to my my dorm and to the train station in that area, nothing was in English. So like the train map was in Japanese, all the stuff signs was in Japanese. Maybe I think the machines you can press English for a button, but I didn't see it. So it was kind of fun just figuring it out as I would go. I guess some kids wouldn't like that as much, but yeah, I just went as I did.
Okay, Logan, before we let you go, I have a question from
Sure.
someone going to Japan. This question is
Sure.
how to realistically budget your money across months of a program?
It's a good question. You just have to really figure out what you're trying to do before you go, because realistically you'll have like a little less depending on what program you're doing actually. See what classes you'll take and where you want to go, because realistically rent for me a month was, with all the fees included, like $200 or something. the rent by itself is like $50 or $60, but then you have like administration fees and stuff like that, water, electric, whatever, gas. So it's very cheap compared to American standards. Food, what would be a $10 meal here would be $5 there. So you can basically cut things in half. But the big expenses come from traveling, like using your trains, buses, and then using like the bullet train to other cities. That gets quite costly. I would suggest you cook quite often because it's very cheap to cook rather than eat out all the time. Those are some good options to save money. Yeah, maybe invest in a bicycle because everyone rides a bike over there and you can save. I got one like the first 2 weeks I was there and it saved me so much time.
Thank you. And I may have to
Yep.
circle back to the student. I might give him your information again because he has more questions. The other question is for Samantha. Same question. What were your challenges and what about currency conversion? Did you take dollars with you? Did you find it difficult to get money out of the ATM? What sort of challenges did you have?
So the challenges were the difference in the education. Like some students say, it's really helpful to find locals there and ask them questions. And it was very helpful that they have like a orientation week the week before the semester started, so you can meet people and then find out what kind of like clubs they have and what from the clubs, what transportation that people give you information about everything basically. The conversion with the money was not too bad because for me personally, I have partners and they only took out 1% of every transaction I did. So I didn't really need to go with too much cash, except when I like wash my clothes and then with the machines I have to put the money. That was the only time I really use cash. So yeah, it wasn't too bad with the conversion.
And the other challenges was pretty much good at adjusting to the environment, to the culture.
Yes, basically.
Perfect. Sarah, same question. Challenges, conversion of currency, and an additional question from one of the students. They're interested in which mobile plan you purchased when you were there as well.
So the challenge that I had was basically like accepting the fact that I was gonna stick out no matter where I went. And, the first week I was there was kind of rough trying to figure out, where to go and how to really navigate myself. But luckily with the University of Seoul, they have this program called Soulmate, where you get partnered up with a local. And she was very helpful. She told me where to get, all of my living supplies and helped me, find good places to eat and all that stuff. And after a week, I adjusted pretty well. Money-wise, I did all of my conversions before I left, if that makes any sense. So I opened up a credit card with Bank of America, a travel card, more specifically, where there's no transaction fees across, like in another country. So I had that credit card and I used that for all of my purchases. And then I would just pay it off with my debit card. And before I left, I took out a good amount of cash with Bank of America because I realized that the conversion rates are a little bit lower if you go through a bank here instead of going to a bank in the native country. They kind of like charge you a bit. But if you're in a predicament where you're in the country and you want to withdraw money and you don't have a local card and you want to use your foreign credit card, I recommend going to a local bank. Don't go to no random ATM. Go to a local bank. So for example, in Korea, there's a bank called KEB. I would go to that ATM and withdraw money because what they have is that they have a foreign ATM strictly for foreign cards and the conversion rates are reasonable. So they're not overcharging you anything. other than that, with transporting around and making friends, it was pretty easy. I didn't think it was going to happen that fast, but with living on campus with the university, so I was in the international house, so I was constantly around foreigners. And I actually had a friend that's also with UCF that she went to Korea too. She just went to a different school, so we were able to link up and just hang out all the time. It was very easy to get around too. It's a lot of walking. If you're not really into walking, I suggest getting like a skateboard or a bike because there's a lot of walking. But it's easy to get onto the subway and to get onto the bus. They even have if you go to Korea, I highly recommend getting like a transportation card because you could just put money on there, and getting on a train is like $1 round trip. But if you were to get off the train and then get onto a bus within 30 minutes, your bus fare is like 50 cents or free. So they have like this good discount program to help you save more money as you travel. And you can do 2-hour trips and not even spend $5. So that was a good adjustment for me. But other than that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it with my challenges.
How did you get a cell phone plan before you leave, or did you have an unlocked phone, or?
So I was looking into that because they always said, get an unlocked phone. And I was like, what does that mean? So I talked to my service provider, and with Verizon, I think all of the phones are already unlocked. So I had to wait until I got to Korea to get a service plan. I went to someone, I don't even know who I went to. It was a friend of a friend, but he was able to get me a SIM card with KT, and it was 4G unlimited. And every month I paid about 36,000 Korean won, which was about $30, which wasn't bad for unlimited. And yeah, you just paid monthly. You would go over there and pay it, or they would take it out your account. And then once you were done, once I left, the card was just done. I didn't have to pay any extra fees to cancel it and whatnot.
And then Megan, how was your challenges as well and currency conversion?
So for me, the currency conversion itself was not an issue. So every country, well, not every country, but almost all countries will have certain ATMs that will match up with whatever bank you have. So there's like a website online, I can't remember which one I used, but you can just Google it and you can find, or you can call your bank and you can find like the partner bank for that for like the partner bank in other countries for that bank. So every time I went to another country, like beforehand, I would look up what that bank's ATMs had that were compatible, or sorry, what that country's ATMs were that were compatible with my bank. And then based on that, you can go to those ATMs. So it's like you kind of have to figure out if you're going to different countries, like which ones it is for that specific country. But then most of them, like most of the time in Europe at least, you can find ATMs that won't have a fee, or if they do, it's a very, very small fee. So what I did is before the trip, I took out a bunch of money from my bank in euros just to have on me for when I got there, which I recommend because when you first get there, like they said, like there's a huge transition time of like just figuring out so many details. There's so much stuff that you have to like kind of figure out. And so you want to be like as kind of prepared as you can. But my issue was I lost one of my cards like the week before I went on the trip, like the week before I left. So I couldn't get a new one in time. And then my other card, randomly while I was there, like the chip stopped working, and then I got fraud on it, so I couldn't access it. Like that was a whole big thing. So make sure like some banks will have a setting where you can tell them that you're traveling, and it'll check your location on your phone from your banking app and match it with where you're purchasing things so that they know that it's not fraud and it's just that you're traveling. So I did that, but it still had fraud on it for some reason. But anyway, definitely like have a backup plan to your finances for sure, and always have cash on you. And then as far as the phone thing goes, yeah, definitely if you can get an unlocked phone, I would highly recommend that, because even though like AT&T and Verizon, depending on where you go, they may have companies overseas that are compatible with those locked phones. Not all countries will, like Spain didn't. So my friends who had unlocked phones paid like $10 a month and had unlimited data. And then for me, my phone was locked, so I could only really use Wi-Fi. And then I would like use data only for emergencies or something. And then I saw someone ask a question about, are you put in groups or traveling alone? So kind of like I said, there was the program that organized like small day trips for us, and then you like will make a million friends, and people will want to go on trips, and you can like just kind of join on trips with other people and friends and stuff and plan that. I highly, 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 highly recommend traveling alone. I did a couple solo trips, and it's honestly like, it's so freeing. It's so much fun. You just wake up every day, do what you want to do. It is a lot more work because you have to like do all the planning by yourself, and you do have to be careful, especially depending on where you're traveling. So like for girls, I don't recommend, like don't go to France by yourself to travel if you're a girl. I don't recommend that. If you're with a group, you're totally fine, but like there's some places you just have to be more careful. I would also say if you're a girl, like be careful in Belgium. I did Belgium by myself, and I just like didn't go out after dark, but like I did Austria for a week and skied by myself for a whole week, and I felt totally safe the whole time. Like it just depends on where you're going. But I definitely recommend doing that at some time. So yeah, the other struggle I had was, for me, it was a lot of, like I'm a social person, but to a limit, and it's, you just meet so many people and make so many new friends, which is great. But then personally, I got to a point where I was like, I need to just go be by myself a little bit, which is actually when I went to Belgium. I just like bought a plane ticket and was like, I'm gonna go to Belgium tomorrow because I need to like have some space for a sec, because like you just make so many friends, which is awesome, but it can be a little overwhelming. So like also, this is the last thing, I feel like I'm going on forever, but definitely make sure you take care of yourself. You're gonna be having so much fun, there's gonna be so much stuff to do, and it's gonna feel like you just wanna say yes to everything. But like make sure you sleep and like eat healthy and rest, because if you get sick and you're sleep deprived, it's not fun. I ended up having to go to the hospital because I got a little cold and I have bad asthma, and it didn't get better and it just got worse, and I was like trying to push through it and like still have fun, and it was just not good. So definitely take care of yourself for sure. Like, yeah, can't stress that enough.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay,
That's good information for us, not to overdo it. One of the questions that we generally get sometimes, and I want to add this on to how the experience have changed you. How basically want to ask how the experience have changed you, but also if you can also touch a little bit, and we'll start with Janelle, about the classroom structure. How are your classes? I heard Megan yesterday talk about it was more hands-on, and I would like to hear more about your classrooms, the classes, how are they structured for you? So Janelle, if we want to start with you, it's the classroom structure, and how has this experience changed you?
Sure. So for the classroom structure, I went to like a smaller uni, so there were less people, so the classes were like a lot smaller than some of the classes at UCF. And it was really nice because instead of more of like a lecture style where the professor would speak the whole time and you're just kind of passive and listening, it's more of a like a conversation that you have. So it's like, you know, a professor will say something and then ask a question and ask for opinions from like everyone in the classroom. So that was really nice that everyone was able to kind of like give their own input, and you could kind of not only learn from the professor but also learn from other students and their experiences and their perspectives. So I would say that was like the main thing that I noticed. That was like the main difference between like UCF and my experience abroad. And then how has the experience changed me? I would say I 100% have become so much more confident in many different things, especially in like the little aspects of life, and also being more aware of different like cultures and, you know, knowing that, okay, so maybe something is normal for me is not so normal for someone else, or maybe something that is, rude or polite for me is the opposite in, someone else's culture. Um, so yeah, that was another thing. I just became a lot more like culturally aware, as well as like curious to learn about other people and their cultures. So, when you're abroad, definitely ask people a lot of questions and take advantage, of the differences, and just like see what you can learn from other people and try to make friends from like different countries and try to learn from them. Because I would say that's something that helped me out, a lot. And I met people from countries that I had never even heard of in general. So just like all these experiences accumulated to make me like a more confident person in general.
Thank you, Janelle, and congratulations on graduating and good luck on your job search, okay?
Oh, thank you so much.
No problem. And Logan, same question. Tell us a little bit about the classroom structure, because we were learning Japanese language in Japan, and also, how has this experience changed you?
Yeah, so originally before I left, I was trying to do a engineering program, but that kind of fell through because they didn't have any in English, taught in English. But I still wanted to see the culture and live there, so I decided to do the language exchange. Saitama University is a pretty good university. I think it's like a national university, but still very small. Class sizes were like in the 20s, 25 maybe. Different levels for different proficiencies. Now that was pre-COVID. That was in the fall of 19. Spring 2020, their spring, it was all online, and I'd say 95% of the students left, or they didn't, like 95% left and then no students came. So there was only like 4 or 5 students in my classes at the time. So that changed quite drastically. What else was the question? I'm sorry.
So you've talked about how you've grown from this experience, a classroom structure. We did that. How have you grown from this experience, I guess?
I guess you learn, like, the amount you learn depends on how much you expose yourself, how much you speak up and participate. For myself, at the beginning, I wouldn't say I was shy, but I wasn't as outgoing as I knew I could have been. So about like a month in, I started, participating more, talking more to people. And now this is while all the other students are also international students. I only had one other American. Everyone else was of a different country. Yeah, South Korea, China, Australia, Germany. So they were at the same level as you in their language proficiency, but other classes that you took had native Japanese students in them, so you can interact with them. But again, your level of understanding is how far you can communicate with them. So the more you study, the more you can, I guess, have fun, in my opinion. Because the more you can speak with them, the more fun you're going to have. So that's how I made most of my friends, doing that. Participating in some clubs, some sports. I did baseball and golf when I was there. I knowingly picked something that didn't have a lot of foreigners in them, just because I wanted to have an experience where I was around the language the whole time and I wasn't cheating myself. So that's what I mostly did. Even when I travel with some friends, I chose or go out. I chose to go out with people I didn't know as well, but were not foreigners specifically. How did I grow? I guess more outgoing. I've learned to get out of my comfort zone more. You really learn a lot. You experience a lot when you live in another culture and you get to see the day-to-day life, what other people go through, different from your own. I know one student, what's his name, Elvis, asked how to pay rent. For me, it was quite easy. My school gave me like a packet, like all the students, new incoming students came in. They give you a packet, like here's where you go to the supermarket if you need something. Here's where you pay your rent. This is how you work the machine. Stuff like that was pretty basic. If you had any questions, we had a tutor that you can ask questions for, like all of the getting your international, what is this called? I don't know, like it's a foreigner card, basically your immigration card. You have to do at a city office. They'll help you do that. So I didn't really have any problems with that, luckily. But your day-to-day things that you can do are up to you, basically. So you can choose to do nothing and sit in your room, but that's not why you went there, you know? So pick a club, meet some friends, just go out, because for me, I didn't know anyone and I didn't know the language. So I really had to do a lot of things that wasn't comfortable at first, but you get used to it.
Thank you, Logan. And I think that's important that he just said that, you know, you're going to a country that you may not know the native language. And so the whole idea of signing up for a study abroad program is that you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're there to learn things. So great point, Logan. Thank you.
Yep.
Some more questions. And who's next on our list? It is Samantha. Same thing. How have you grown from this experience, and how were your class structure?
So I think I grown a lot from the experience. From the beginning, I didn't really like to travel alone or go places on my own, but especially after the pandemic, I realized that I had to see more of the sites of the country and everything else. So I got really comfortable going places by myself, and I was more independent with making decisions, because I feel like here, since I'm the youngest, so sometimes I ask a lot of advice from my siblings, but over there with the time zoning differences, I got to, you know, reanalyze and use critical thinking on a lot of things, and that really made me grow. And especially, and also with cooking, I learned how to cook more because you by yourself, so you have to cook. um, with the classes setups were a little bit different from here, because some classes had the they had 2 days for one class. So they had like a lecture day, and then they had regular class days. So for the lectures, it wasn't mandatory to go, but it was an option to go. So it was still almost the same criteria that they have, where they had the professor just go through PowerPoints and then just explaining the criteria for the week, and then the regular class you participate in groups more. So that was different in from what I'm used to here. Yeah, so that's all.
Thank you, Samantha. And then Sarah, how have you grown from this experience? And I know you've been answering some questions about classroom structure. So how were the classes?
So the classes, let me correct myself in the chat. The classes were pretty easy. I was able to pass all of them with flying colors. Now, I don't know if it was because everything was online and the teachers were more lenient, but my classes were filled with foreigners. They were all foreigners. So I feel like the teachers, you know, were a little bit easy on us because they can't ask us too hard of questions. But as far as learning what was going on, I was able to really grasp the material. As far as that, like, you know, after studying abroad in Korea, I learned a lot because I was able to communicate with a lot of foreigners. So I felt like I grew in that aspect, just because, you know, you really get to see a life different from yours. And after being there for about 3 weeks, I kind of, eliminated all of the perceptions I had of how to navigate through life, based off of American views. And I kind of, looked at how Koreans operated and kind of adapted to their lifestyle. So for example, it's very common for people over there to meet up for lunch, spend like an hour or two in the restaurant, and then right after you go straight to a cafe and you have coffee or dessert. And then you walk around the neighborhood, then you shop, or you eat street food, or you walk into a karaoke room and or a arcade room, and you kind of get used to that. Before I was like, I'm gonna eat and go home, like that's it. But but once you realize like, dang, I'm gonna take 30 minutes to get to a restaurant, eat, and then take 30 minutes back home, like I'll just stay out. And there'll be moments where I stayed out until 5 a.m. to catch the next train home. Like I did some crazy stuff over there, but that's just the life that they have. And you kind of get used to it, and you're kind of just like, you know what, this is fun. And you don't feel like you stick out so much and you stand out so much and you feel like you can't do it because you're a foreigner. You can do it, and they'll be happy to help you do it. There are many times where I'm just, by myself, and I have Koreans on the train, complimenting me, trying to have conversations with me, or you go into a store and you don't know what to do. They're right there to help you. They're so friendly. They're so easy to communicate with, even with the language barrier. So after experiencing that, I was like, okay, I could do this again. It wasn't as traumatic as I thought it was going to be. Other than that, with rent, for people going to the University of Seoul, just know that you pay rent flat for the whole 5 months that you're there. So for me, it was like $800 for 6 months being there. And that included having my own room and having access to the communal kitchen. Like you shared a bathroom with someone else, but you couldn't beat that price. And having access to convenience stores on the dorm floor, and there was other things too. Oh, the laundry room. They had a gym, but the gym was closed due to COVID. But yeah, very inexpensive, very manageable to do.
Okay, Sarah, I heard you mention that there was a convenience store on the floor.
Not each floor. It was like, it felt like each floor because the dorm was only 3 stories, but it's in like the main like lobby area.
Okay.
And that everyone has access to.
Did you cook a lot, or did you eat out a lot? And how was the cost rating out?
I tried to cook. I did, because I like to cook. However, it's a communal kitchen, and it wasn't what I'm used to, because everyone had there was 6 hot plates that people had to share. So I tried to cook. I didn't really like it. Most of the time, I'm always out eating with friends, but it wasn't obnoxious. Like if I cooked, I'd have my breakfast, or I would cook ramen. I spent most of the time eating ramen because that was just like the cheapest thing to buy in the convenience store. But whenever you meet your friends, you're always going out to eat. Even if you're going out to just shop, you're always gonna eat chicken, or you can do the delivery service. The delivery service was pretty fast. Like I would order a bucket of chicken and I would get it within like 15 minutes. So I always had those options. Now, it was expensive. After it racked up, a couple of days, was a lot of money. However, it was worth it. It was worth it. I don't regret it at all.
Well, you saved on rent, so that's amazing.
I did, exactly. The money that I didn't put towards rent went towards food. It was worth it because the food was amazing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. And Megan, if we can talk about how has this experience changed you, and what was the class structure?
So I would agree with pretty much everything that everyone else said. Definitely like more independent, more adventurous, more comfortable, just like doing my thing. And also just more like self-aware of like when you travel by yourself, you kind of figure out like, okay, I really like going to museums. I really like doing this. I really like doing that. And that's one of the things about that is that you can you're not limited by like listening to what other people want to do. You can just do what you want to do. Also, for sure, more understanding of other cultures and accepting of people's differences and just more aware. And also like I definitely view America differently. Like now from like once you leave and like experience other cultures, it makes you realize things about like your own country and how you were raised and your family structure, like when you're in a different lifestyle. So that was definitely interesting. And yeah, you definitely, like they said, there is a very different lifestyle that you're just gonna kind of get used to, and you do end up like adopting some of the cultural characteristics, at least I did. Like in Spain, they're like super, super laid back. And like I said before, I'm pretty on the go and I like to like go, 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 do things like all the time. And it definitely taught me to like take a deep breath, like chill, just like hang out, relax. Like that's just the Spain culture. And that was definitely good for me to do. I also agree, like you get out what you put into it. So I highly recommend, like, there's going to be a lot of people from other countries, and it's very natural to just be friends with other Americans just because of the language and the cultural similarities. It's just like it seems natural, but I really recommend that you try to challenge yourself to be friends, like try to like spend a lot of time with people from other cultures, other countries, like make friends with them, spend time with them, like ask them about their life, ask them about their home, because that's a once in a lifetime experience. And also like ask the local stuff too. Like in Spain, at least, everyone's so friendly and helpful. Like if you just stop someone on the side of the road, I did this all the time. One of my friends did it, and like I learned it from him, is you just ask them on the side of the road, like, what's your favorite restaurant? Or like, what's the best place to go do this? Like they, depending on where you are, most of the time they're gonna be more than happy to like tell you, and you get like the inside scoop. So it definitely made me more comfortable just like talking to strangers like that. Like don't be annoying, but like, be polite, but they're usually really helpful. As far as the classes, way smaller in my experience. Like there's only like 10 people in my class. I think that was like the biggest class I had was 10 people. For sure easier. You're not expected to do as much. The tests are easier. There's less assignments. I did struggle with, we weren't given like textbooks or anything. So the only information you had was what you got from class. So I've kind of gotten through school by like I go to class, I take my notes, but for the most part I learn by like teaching it to myself from the textbook and then the notes. I have a hard time like learning from class because I can't like learn and take notes at the same time. My brain's just too much. So that was a little tricky for me just because I had to learn to like figure it out during class. And you also, at my school, like they're not really okay with you skipping class. So like at UCF, if you miss a class here or there, it's fine. But like there, you can't just like not show up because of the smaller class sizes. Like they'll know and they'll get annoyed. So the teachers were super helpful, very accommodating. I think that's like the only thing that they were more strict about was skipping class. But that was just my school, so I don't know other places. But
Thank you. We are out of time. So I want to take time to thank all the panelists, Logan, Janelle, Samantha, Sarah, Megan. Thank you so much for volunteering your time to be with us today. If there's any other questions that we have from the students that you want to know right now, go ahead and unmute yourselves because we're really out of time. But if you have, yes, we have a student that's going to Japan, is going to South Korea. You can leave your email here. I can forward it to Sarah or to Logan or vice versa. So, but I want to thank you all for showing up, for helping and answering these questions. We are going to post this on our YouTube channel, I believe next week, because we have a lot of events this week. But thank you all so much. I appreciate you taking the time to share. And this was super helpful. I think once we have it posted and other students can see it, or hear it, I should say, this is going to be helpful for all of them. So thank you all. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I see that the panelists have added their email and their Instagrams on the chat. Go ahead and copy it, get that information. Because I know Janine, you're going South Korea, so this, and Michael. So this is going to be a great contact for you. And Elvis, I think he's going to Japan. So yes, please reach out to the students that have gone before and hear about their experiences. So have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.